Chapter 34. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king of Judah, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. Josiah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and followed the example of his ancestor King David. He did not turn aside to the right or to the left. In the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, Josiah began to seek the God of his ancestor David. 4 years later, he began to cleanse Judah and Jerusalem by destroying the pagan places of worship, the Asherah poles, and the carved and cast idols. In his presence, the altars of Baal were torn down, and he himself smashed the incense altars that were on top of them. He broke the Asherah poles and the other images into pieces, ground them into dust, and scattered the dust over the graves of those who had sacrificed to them. He burned the bones of the pagan priests on their altars. In this way, Josiah purified Judah and Jerusalem. He did the same in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simeon, and as far as Naphtali, and in the surrounding ruins. He traveled throughout Israel, tearing down altars and Asherah poles, crushing idols into dust, and destroying all the incense altars. Then he returned to Jerusalem. In the 18th year of his reign, after he had purified the land and the temple, Josiah sent Shaphan, son of Azaliah Maaseiah, the governor of Jerusalem, and Joah, son of Joahaz, the royal recorder, to repair the temple of the Lord his God. They went to Hilkiah the high priest and gave him the money brought into the temple. This money had been collected from the people of Manasseh and Ephraim, the remnant of Israel, the people of Judah and Benjamin, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The money was given to the workers in charge of the repairs, who paid the laborers restoring and repairing the temple. They gave it to carpenters and builders to buy dressed stones and timber for beams, and for repairs to the buildings that the kings of Judah had allowed to fall into ruin. The workers did their work faithfully. Their supervisors were Levites, Jahath and Obadiah from the family of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam from the family of Kohath. Other Levites, who were skilled musicians, served as scribes, officers, and gatekeepers. While they were bringing out the money given for the temple, Hilkiah the priest found the book of the law of the Lord that had been given through Moses. Hilkiah said to Shaphan the scribe, "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord," and he gave it to Shaphan. Shaphan took the book to the king and reported, "Your servants have carried out everything that was entrusted to them. They have collected the money found in the temple and handed it over to those in charge of the work." Then Shaphan said to Hilkiah, "The priest has given me a book," and he read it aloud to the king. When the king heard the words of the law, he tore his clothes in sorrow. Then he commanded Hilkiah, Ahikam, son of Shephan-Abdon, son of Micah Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the king's servant, "Go and inquire of the Lord for me, and for the remnant in Israel and Judah, about what is written in this book. Great is the Lord's anger that has been poured out on us, because our ancestors did not obey the Lord's words or do everything written in this book." Hilkiah and the men went to speak to the prophetess Huldah, who lived in the 2nd district of Jerusalem. She was the wife of Shallum, son of Tokath, son of Hazra, keeper of the wardrobe. They told her everything, and she gave them this message from the Lord: "I am going to bring disaster on this city and its people. All the curses written in the book read to the king of Judah. They have forsaken me and burned incense to other gods, arousing my anger. My wrath will be poured out on this place and will not be quenched. But to the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, tell him this: because your heart was tender and you humbled yourself before God when you heard his words against this place and its people, because you tore your clothes and wept before me, I have heard you. You will die in peace and will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place." The men returned to the king with this answer. Then King Josiah summoned all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem, who went up to the temple with all the people from the greatest to the least, along with the priests and Levites. There he read aloud all the words of the book of the covenant that had been found in the temple. Standing by his column, the king made a covenant before the Lord to follow the Lord and keep his commands, statutes and decrees with all his heart and all his soul, and to obey the words of the covenant written in the book. And he made all the people in Jerusalem and Benjamin stand to it. The people of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of God, the God of their ancestors. Josiah removed all the detestable idols from every territory belonging to the Israelites, And he compelled all who were in Israel to serve the Lord their God, as long as Josiah lived. They did not fail to follow the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Chapter 35. Josiah celebrated the Passover in Jerusalem in honor of the Lord. On the 14th day of the first month, the Passover lambs were slaughtered. He appointed the priests to their duties in the temple and encouraged them to perform their service faithfully. He then called the Levites, who taught the law of the Lord to all Israel, and were set apart for his service, and said to them, "Place the Ark of the Covenant in the temple built by King Solomon, son of David. You will no longer need to carry it on your shoulders. Now dedicate yourselves to serving the Lord your God and his people Israel. Organize yourselves by families and divisions, according to the instructions given by King David and his son Solomon. Stand in the holy place in groups according to the families of your fellow Israelites. So there will be Levites available to assist each family group. Slaughter the Passover lambs, purify yourselves, prepare the sacrifices, so that your fellow Israelites may celebrate the Passover according to the commands the Lord gave through Moses. From his own flocks and herds, King Josiah gave the people 30,000 lambs and young goats and 3,000 cattle for the Passover offerings. The officials also contributed to the people, the priests, and the Levites. Shallum, Zechariah, and Jehiel, the administrators of the temple, gave the priests 2,600 lambs and goats and 300 cattle for the Passover sacrifices. The leaders of the Levites, Conaniah, along with Shemaiah and Nethanel, his brothers, also Hashabiah, Jeiel, and Josabad, gave the Levites 5,000 lambs and goats and 500 cattle. Everything was prepared, the priests took their positions, and the Levites divided into groups, just as the king had commanded. Then the Passover animals were slaughtered. The Levites skinned the animals and handed the blood to the priests, who sprinkled it on the altar. They set aside the burnt offerings to be given to the people according to their family groups, so they could present them to the Lord as commanded by Moses. The same was done with the cattle. They roasted the Passover animals according to the regulations, and boiled the other sacred offerings in pots, kettles, and pans, and distributed the food quickly to all the people. Afterward, the Levites prepared their own portions and those of the priests. The descendants of Aaron, because the priests were busy until evening, offering burnt sacrifices and the fat portions. The musicians, descendants of Asaph, were at their posts, as commanded by David. Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun, the king's seer. The gatekeepers also remained at their posts and did not need to leave their stations, because their fellow Levites prepared their portions for them. So all the work for that day in worship of the Lord was carried out, just as King Josiah had commanded. The Passover was celebrated in honor of the Lord, and the burnt offerings were sacrificed on the altar. For 7 days, the Israelites present in Jerusalem celebrated the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Since the days of the prophet Samuel, no Passover like this had been celebrated in Israel. No king of Israel had ever celebrated a Passover like Josiah did, with the priests, the Levites, all Judah and Israel who were present, and the people of Jerusalem. This Passover was celebrated in the 18th year of his reign. After all this, when Josiah had set the temple in order, King Necho of Egypt marched to fight at Carchemish on the Euphrates River. Josiah went out to confront him, but Necho sent messengers saying, "King of Judah, this conflict is not with you. I am not attacking you, but my enemies, and God has commanded me to hurry. God is with me. Do not oppose him, or he will destroy you." But Josiah would not turn back. He refused to listen to the warning from God delivered through Necho. Instead, he disguised himself and went to fight him in the valley of Megiddo. The archers shot King Josiah, and he cried out to his officers, "I am severely wounded. Take me away." They removed him from his chariot, put him in another chariot, and brought him to Jerusalem. He died and was buried in the tombs of the kings. All Judah and Jerusalem mourned for him. The prophet Jeremiah composed a lament in honor of Josiah. To this day, singers and women singers commemorate Josiah in their laments. These laments became a tradition in Israel and are recorded in the Book of Lamentations. Josiah performed many acts of faithfulness and obedience to the law of the Lord. Everything he did, from beginning to end, is written in the history of the kings of Israel and Judah. Chapter 36 in the second book of Chronicles. Chapter 36. The people of Judah chose Jehoaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. Jehoash was 23 years old when he became king of Judah. He reigned in Jerusalem for 3 months. Jehoash was removed from the throne by King Necho of Egypt, who also forced the people of Judah to pay 3,400 kilograms of silver and 34 kilograms of gold. Necho appointed Elohim, Jehoash's brother, as king of Judah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. Jehoash was taken by Necho to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded the land, captured Jehoiakim, and bound him with chains to take him to Babylon as a prisoner. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the temple treasures to Babylon and placed them in his palace. The rest of Jehoiakim's story, the evil things he did, and the charges brought against him, is written in the history of the kings of Israel and Judah. His son Jehoiakim succeeded him as king. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king of Judah. He reigned for 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. In the spring of that year, King Nebuchadnezzar captured him and took him as a prisoner to Babylon, also taking the most valuable objects from the temple. Nebuchadnezzar appointed Zedekiah, Jehoiachin's uncle, as king of Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king of Judah. He reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. Zedekiah did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and did not humble himself before the prophet Jeremiah, who spoke God's message. Zedekiah rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had forced him by the name of God to swear allegiance. He was stubborn and refused to repent and return to the Lord, the God of Israel. In addition, the officials of Judah, the priests, and the people were sinning more and more, following the ways of the pagan nations and worshiping idols. As a result, they defiled the temple that the Lord had chosen as a holy place where he was to be worshipped. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, continued to warn them through his prophets, because he cared for his people and his temple, his house. But they mocked God's messengers, rejected their messages, and scorned them. Finally, God's anger against his people was so great that there was no remedy. So God allowed the king of Babylon to march against them with his army. He killed the young men with the sword, even in the temple. He showed no mercy to anyone, neither young men nor young women, neither adults nor animals. God delivered all into the hands of the king of Babylon, took all the temple treasures, both great and small, as well as all the treasures of the king and his officials, and carried them off to Babylon. The soldiers burned the temple, tore down the walls of Jerusalem, burned all the palaces, and destroyed all valuable items. The remaining inhabitants of Jerusalem were taken as prisoners to Babylon, where they became servants of the king and his descendants until the kingdom of Persia came to power. Thus was fulfilled what the Lord had spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. The land shall remain desolate for 70 years. And during all this time, the land will observe its Sabbaths and rest. In the first year of the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, what the Lord had spoken through Jeremiah was fulfilled. The Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, and he issued a decree throughout his entire kingdom, both in writing and publicly read. I, Cyrus, king of Persia, declare this: the Lord, the God of heaven, has appointed me to govern the whole world and has charged me to build him a temple in Jerusalem, in the region of Judah. I order all you who are his people to go to Jerusalem, and I pray that God be with you.